Hello again. So this is episode 9 of the development diary for Fragile Existence. It's been a long 6 weeks, I guess, since my last video. And I'm still here in the planet generation system. I still haven't really loaded up the main project file for quite a while. And the last time I showed anything was with the sort of climate modeling. With the really strange, wacky diagrams we were getting to show temperature and precipitation across the planet. And so here we are now with the biomes presented, randomly generated at a certain land-sea ratio, and the ocean level is a separate sphere, so the actual sea height can be changed up and down, and the colors that we're seeing here currently is just the sort of like the rough sort of settings of the planet, and this shows the it's just the vertex colors, which sort of symbolized each of the biome types. So you've got the desert regions here, you've got the tropical regions, and then you've got like the Arctic regions at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to try and get through this a bit quicker than I normally do, make it a shorter video. Good luck with that. But if we switch to studio mode, we get a better lighting situation here. And what we can do is change the land-sea ratio. Here it takes a few moments to update because it's actually calculating the new climate, and things like temperature, precipitation, and the max number of continents can all be changed. But like I say, it has to regenerate the entire climate every time I change it. But the significant step that I've taken since the last video is that we can now texture it. And this texturing is again has to be recalculated. It actually produces a height map and a splat map based on a sort of central camera that's in the middle of this sphere. And what it does is it projects outwards, and the projection is then mapped onto a cube, or a sort of cube map, and so it's Unity's legacy cube map. And then that cube mapping for each face is used to generate what we're seeing here. So based on the sort of the actual biome regions that we saw earlier, we're actually getting we're producing a splat map, which is a number of like brushes, I guess we could call them, that sort of are just all spaced in a grid around the planet, and then they're projected down onto the cube map face for each side. We're doing a similar thing around the edge, where we're actually using brushes to create this sort of more detailed coastal region. It looks a little bit fussy. It's not super tidy. I still need to work on the texturing there. I need to sort of add texturing based on the slope or the steepness of it. Also, the ocean shader here is actually adding in this sort of rough coastline type region. I'm not hugely happy with it, but it's a lot better than it just not doing it at all, I found. If it's just straight blue, it doesn't look particularly good. And you can just go back to the basic settings, and you can fiddle with things. Put the land-sea ratio down a bit. If we make the temperature a lot higher, you'll see that there'll be more desert regions. And if we go back to texturing, it automatically regenerates based on these settings. So just like that, really, and take the lights off, and that's how it'll look in game. Apart from that, the next thing I've done is moved on to the features section. Now this automatically textures everything. Now the idea is that these two settings here will then become invalid. You won't be able to go back once you start adding features to the planet. So this bar comes up, and it allows us to add in well, a single tree at the moment, I'll demonstrate that in a moment. But I first want to talk about, before I get to the actual placement of objects on the planet, is that I have essentially finished the A-star navigation, and I've just got a rough debug system working at the moment. So no actual units are moving, but that is obviously the next step. So what we can do is place a little circle here, and then a circle here, and as you can see, just using these nice sort of friendly debug spheres, we're generating a path from the starting point to the destination point, and it's avoiding going into the ocean. It's actually following the path of the land. And if we leave that as the start point, we can see how it's generating paths for any point that I choose to use, the quickest path that is. And this is using a very basic A* implementation. It takes an average of 50 to 200 milliseconds based on the distance, and obviously this is only calculating one path at the moment. When we've got lots more units, we might need to look into optimizing it a little bit more, and if you select one that it can't reach, it just gives up, and we can clear that out and just add in one just to demonstrate how it works. So that's working pretty well. What we can also then do is add features. Now technically these features do invalidate the nav mesh underneath. So you understand that these are very work in progress. I don't like the lighting on them at all. They're actually just a free asset on the Unity store. And so they're getting placed orientated with the center of the planet. And we can really do as much as we want to do. Now the features panel is eventually going to have sort of like a brush settings bit here, so you'll be able to procedurally place things based on the biomes, or sort of change the brush settings so that you're placing a lot more trees in one go and that kind of thing. And so there'll be a whole range of options here, not just natural features. There'll be mountains. I realise that is a natural feature, but there'll be things like cities you'll be able to place down and that sort of thing. I also intend to add in so lakes and rivers. The rivers I intend to use the actual algorithm for the A* pathing, so much so that when you place a mountain, for example, you can say it's a source of water, and then it'll actually generate a sort of a course of water towards the ocean, and it'll actually place points and then do an A* calculation of a path between them. And again, that's the sort of thing that you won't be able to go back once you've added in. So the settings sort of builds the basic continent shapes, and then as you can see, it can path quite nicely through the tree regions. It is actually avoiding the actual spots that I've placed the trees, but because of the density of the nav mesh, it's actually quite difficult to impede the actual pathing system. So for example here, it looks like we should be blocking the path, but actually it's finding a way through the trees. It's not having much difficulty with that. So the sort of the feature placement system is quite a feature that I've only just worked on really. Basically started yesterday, and what I need to do is set it so that the collider region actually invalidates more of the nav mesh around it, so that you can't go quite as close. But yeah, so again, I feel like I talk way too long in these videos, so I'm going to try and keep this one very short. I know it doesn't necessarily seem like I've done much more than where I was last time, but there have been so many technical hurdles in getting from the sort of the Voronoi regions to an actual textured planet surface. The ocean shader took some time to get right. It turns out very easy to do water on a flat plane, very difficult to do it on a sphere. So it's using depth checking, and it just turns out you need to sort of think a bit more carefully when it's on a sphere. And I do want to make that look a bit more impressive, add some randomization, some noise, sorry, onto the actual edges. That would be quite cool. And obviously I need lots more features, and I kind of want to add them a bit more programmatically, not singly placing trees. That's not very efficient. But I do intend for the features section and this bar and the many things you'll be able to add to the planets to be artist driven. Yeah, and I know I'm the only artist right now, but the idea is that each planet will be sort of quite tailored, but the procedural stuff is more about the continents and the biomes and that kind of thing. And as I say, you can't go back once you've started placing things. But yeah, definitely very happy with the pathing system. This really opens the door now to getting back into the main project file and starting to integrate the sort of everything else of the ships and the camera system that actually lets you zoom in and start thinking about having multiple planets. I've decided not to go with any kind of floating origin system. What I'm going to do is just render everything at the Unity origin and put it onto so render layers. And what you do is, as you change from planet to planet, you'll just change from render layer to render layer. So everything that's on the planet and in orbit around the planet will be on one particular render layer. And when you switch to another planet, what you're essentially doing is just switching to the other layer. And when a ship leaves orbit and starts moving away, you'll be able to follow it. And there'll be some sort of particle effect around it to hide what's happening around it. But essentially, it's just going to turn around and start heading back towards the origin once it's added onto another render layer. So that's one of the next technical hurdles that I need to do. But yeah, looking forward to getting this moved back into FE, and I think I'm just going to integrate it as a sort of a separate scene there instead of continuing with two separate files. And yeah, I'm looking forward to where this is going. Hey, thanks for watching.